Hello. So, several months ago, I was visiting family, and while I was there, I was able to find a bunch of older things that I had created or made or been a part of. And while I was looking at these things, it really struck me how my reactions to these things had changed because it wasn't so long ago that I could remember really having negative thoughts about most things that I made or was a part of in the past. I have a reference in my head of like when I made the second video that I ever put out on this channel, where I was talking about how a fear of being cringy was holding me back from creating, or how I felt that might have been a factor. So I can recall in that video that some of the things that I would call to mind that made me cringe were these things that I revisited just a few months ago when I was visiting family.
To begin, I just find that when I look back at things that I've done in the past, created, written, posted, whatever, I usually get a feeling of inner embarrassment and cringe when I'm looking back at them.
And I noticed this time through just like how I was feeling internally and my responses that things have really changed. I am feeling a lot better about looking at things from the past now. I am a lot more grateful for them. My perspective has really shifted. And I wanted to explore that, explore how I have gotten this new appreciation for relics of the past me, basically.
This book has step-to-step process that you will be able to follow, as well as helpful hints.
So the number one thing that I think has made a difference, this one sounds really cheesy. I'm gonna warn you. This one also might sound really hard.
And whoever wants to disagree with me about that or agree with me and tell me about it, you're welcome to.
The number one thing that I think made a difference for me was working on being kinder to myself. We don't really talk about that in relation to creating things very often, but I think for me, it has made a huge difference. And it's not something I had really thought about. It's not something that I ever really considered working on until like a year and a bit ago. Basically, I used to default to saying mean things about myself, thinking mean things about myself. I think it was basically a defense mechanism, to be honest. It felt easier in my head to already be thinking negative things about myself, and then have people say negative things about me or treat me negatively. It felt like if I was already doing it, it was okay, which I don't really believe anymore, but in my head, it made sense at the time. So the main thing that helped me to rethink how I was treating myself, to change my perspective, was learning about self compassion. And I don't think I would have learned about self compassion the way that I learned about it in or like the way that it hit me, if it weren't for this YouTube channel, actually. I was researching for a video that I still have not made. Don't know if I will, but I was researching for a video, and from that video, I think somehow ended up stumbling upon self-compassion. And that I did make into a video, and it truthfully was super helpful for me to realize that the way that I had been talking about myself and treating myself wasn't actually helping me. So, since learning about self compassion, I've been working on implementing being kinder to myself. And it's not something that happens overnight by any means. It's kind of a process. And one of the big things for me has just been like shifting my language and how I speak about myself. I think even just something like that in how we like respond to us making mistakes or doing something not in the way that we would have liked to or whatever, trying to not gravitate toward absolutes language or like attacking ourselves in those situations, addressing like what's going on, what we're feeling, but also being mindful of the language and the thoughts that we gravitate towards just that alone has been really big for me. And I know this stuff is not easy. It really is not something that I defaulted to for many years. Being kind to myself is something that I have to work at and practice in comparison to a default of being crueler to myself, which was a thing that I was practicing for many years. With that being kinder to myself, I was able to see things that I did in a different light. So I was able to see things that I actually did well given these circumstances. I was able to celebrate aspects that were positive about the thing, acknowledging the lack of experience that I had, celebrating things that I dared to do, celebrating the things that I would try without knowing how. In noticing things that have changed in myself and also things that have evolved, the things that I've grown from. And even while being kinder to myself and seeing positive things in the things that I've made and finding positive outlooks, I can still have cringe and embarrassment about those things, but accept those things and not attack myself for feeling those things either, and just invite that as an uncomfortable feeling that will pass and that is kind of fun to ride out, to be honest.
I think we all must have seen it sometime and wanted to see it again.
It's kind of fun to laugh at ourselves. It's kind of fun to see humor in those things without beating ourselves up, which is like, again, I did not really know how to do one without the other for a very long time. So, with all this, I've started to appreciate being able to see a little trail of who I used to be and little pieces of who I was. And it's so interesting to me to like see me recorded versus me how I feel in my head. Like those are two very different things. And it's interesting to have like that third element of like revisiting those things after some time, remembering like how you felt in that time, but also seeing how you look through a little bit more of a distanced lens. I think it's just so interesting to find patterns in how we are now, how we used to be. It's just so neat to me that we have that ability to look back on our things. And it was also interesting to look back at things and see myself mirroring or um, to some degree synthesizing from what I saw other people doing or things that had inspired me or things that I liked. Just being able to like see that in past things is really interesting to me. I do also find that one of the things that has helped me is to remember that nothing that you create is going to capture all of you at any time. I love watching videos of people that I know because I love the little reminders of things like how they spoke, the things that they would do, how their voice sounded, the way that that like hit in your head. But they don't capture all of who that person was. I will never even know who all of these people were to their entirety. And really, we're all slightly different from like the self that I am is different from the self that anybody else knows. Sometimes I used to feel like the things that I was looking at were almost like defined me to some degree. And I think because of that, I had this weird relationship with it. But just remembering that none of the things that we create are ever going to really fully embody us entirely. It helps me to think of. I also think it's important to remember that like we can create things that aren't necessarily good yet. They're not necessarily at like a full be something level yet. But they're still like a part of the process and they can still have value in keeping them. In keeping at least parts of them, I think there's sometimes value in like looking back at these things later. And sometimes they do end up becoming something else. As an example of what I'm talking about, I think this book kind of illustrates things. The Backyard Burn Chronicles by Amy Tan is a book that's basically a compilation of excerpts of journal entries and drawings that Amy Tan was doing in her nature journals. And she started nature journaling because she needed a way to deal with the overwhelm of the world. In 2016, I think we all need a way to deal with the world and the overwhelm and can relate to that. But it started out with something that she needed for herself and that she was doing for herself. And it evolved into something that she was willing to compile and share with the world. And I think that's so beautiful. I think it's so lovely that something not birthed out of an idea for a specific product or a specific book can sometimes just end up becoming a project. It can just sometimes end up being something that we can share with other people. And we don't know that going into it, but sometimes things happen. I've also been thinking a lot lately about how much AI art just generally pisses me off. Like, I just don't want to see it. There's so much that I feel like AI art misses. And I think a lot of that comes from me valuing humanity, imperfection, the journeys that people go on when they are creating things. And that to me is so beautiful. There's these stories within the creating that I love. And I can find those stories within myself as well. So it's kind of fun when you're taking that perspective of like, looking at the process as a part of the thing. So I guess in some ways, by reflecting on AI art, I have formed a better relationship to creating things, to trying. Another thing is that growth is so hard for us to see if we do not have measurements of the growth, right? It is so, so hard to just remember how we were at something and use that as our benchmark. Like sometimes we need to have things we can see, have things that are observable to really see like a contrast. And so I really have started to appreciate that with leaving records of ourselves, with leaving records of us trying, we can also have records of us changing, us evolving, and hopefully also improving. So as an example, I decided to rewatch my video where I'm talking about self-compassion, the one that I had referenced earlier in this video. I now think we all need to find ways to be kinder to ourselves, not only because it benefits ourselves, but also to benefit the world around us. And this model that I'm going to talk about today, self-compassion, it's over 20 years old in terms of a studied thing. And it's something that I had not really thought much of or heard much of, or like I might have heard the words self-compassion before, but I didn't really understand the model itself. I was not expecting to see as much of a difference as I do. In my head, there wasn't that much of a difference, but going back over it now, there's a lot of decisions that I made that I wouldn't have done that way now. There's a lot of things that I think I have gotten a better handle on now, but it's interesting to look back and also remember like how hard I worked on those things. Like there's aspects of that that I like really tried to spend a lot of time to make clear or to make as concise as possible. And it's also interesting to see like the little mistakes that I didn't notice. Like there was I had like played with this like masking feature for like the first time I think in that video, and there's a part in the video, like the one that's published, where it's like glitching out. Like I had done like something for the background and it's just like flashing because the mask thing messed up. So it's like interesting to just like see those little mess ups and stuff too. But yeah, I guess that's an example of how like thinking back, we can definitely miss some of the growth when we're just going off of our memories. And having that opportunity to revisit things later on, we can actually see things from a different perspective. And sometimes it gives us an appreciation for where we are at and the journey that we went on. So, yeah, that's some of the thoughts that I've been having in terms of what's helped me. I'm sure there's others that I did not list in here as well, but there's a few that I've noticed have been on my mind the most lately. And as always, I'm curious if you relate to any of this stuff, any of this helps you, or if you have any insights that you'd like to share. Thanks. Take care.